The emergency beacon pulsed through the void, a desperate cry for help that had been traveling through space for 3 standard cycles. It originated from Station Kepler 9, a scientific outpost on the edge of civilized space, now under siege by the Vrax Collective, a ruthless empire that cared nothing for the Galactic Council's laws. Commander Trell, a seasoned warrior from the peaceful world of Althara, watched his screens in growing horror. His people were scholars and diplomats, not fighters. The station's shields flickered with each impact from the Vrax warships. They had maybe hours left, perhaps less. Send the distress signal on all frequencies, Trell ordered, his forearms working frantically across the control panels. Someone has to help us. His second officer, Mara, a slender being with silver skin, looked doubtful. Commander, the nearest council fleet is 6 cycles away. We don't have that much time. Then we pray someone closer hears us, Trell said quietly. The signal went out, encoded with their location and the desperate nature of their situation. It bounced off relay stations, traveled through quantum channels, and spread across the known galaxy. Most species would recognize it as a call meant for military-grade civilizations, the kind with proper warships and trained soldiers. What Trell didn't know was that his communications officer, in panic, had miscoded the signal. Instead of requesting advanced military support, the translation matrix had garbled the message. To anyone receiving it, the beacon now read, "Requesting immediate assistance from species classified as Stage 4 Deathworld survivors or higher." On Earth, in the North American Space Command Center, Lieutenant Davis stared at her screen with confusion. "Ma'am, we're picking up something strange," she called to her superior. Captain Rhodes walked over, coffee in hand. "What kind of strange?" "It's a distress call, but it's not from any of our vessels." "Alien, definitely alien. And it's asking specifically for Deathworld species." Davis looked up, her eyes wide. "That's us, ma'am. We're classified as a Stage 5 Deathworld in the database we got from the Galactic Council last year." Rhodes felt her heart rate spike. Humanity had only made official contact with the galactic community 18 months ago. It had been peaceful, cautious, and mostly involved confused aliens trying to understand why humans found their dangerous gravity wells comfortable and their toxic atmospheric pressure normal. "What's the situation?" Rhodes asked. Davis worked her console. "A station called Kepler 9 is under attack. They're being slaughtered by something called the Vrax Collective. They need help, and they specifically requested our classification level." Rhodes set down her coffee. "Get me Admiral Park, now." Within the hour, the decision had been made at the highest levels. Earth had been trying to prove itself as a reliable member of the galactic community. Here was a chance to show they could help, not just survive on their death world. The UNS Valor was already in nearby space, a military frigate on routine patrol near the outer colonies. It was fast, well-armed by human standards and crewed by 200 of Earth's finest. Captain Brooks received his new orders with grim determination. "Set course for these coordinates," he told his navigation officer. "Maximum burn. I want to be there in 2 days." "Sir, that's going to be rough on the crew," the officer warned. "Then they better strap in tight," Brooks replied. "Someone needs our help and we're going to give it to them." Back on Station Kepler 9, Trell watched another shield generator fail. The Vrax were closing in, their boarding parties already cutting through the outer hull in 3 different sections. His people were preparing for hand-to-hand combat, though they had little hope of success. Altharan bodies were fragile compared to the armored Vrax warriors. "Any response to our signal?" he asked Mara. "Yes, Commander," she said, her voice trembling. "One ship has responded. They say they'll be here in 2 cycles." "One ship?" Trell felt his hope crumble. "What kind of ship? Council battle cruiser? Krell dreadnought?" Mara checked her screen, confusion crossing her features. "It says, human frigate, class military patrol vessel. They're from a world called Earth." "Earth?" Trell had never heard of it. "Are they at least Stage 2 military classification?" "No data available on their military capacity," Mara said softly. "But Commander, they're listed as a Stage 5 Deathworld species." The control room fell silent. Everyone knew what that meant. Deathworld species were rare, and most never made it past their own planets. Those that did were either incredibly tough or incredibly lucky. Trell just hoped they were the former. The UNS Valor cut through space at speeds that would have terrified most galactic species. Inside, the crew moved with practiced efficiency, preparing for combat against an enemy they knew almost nothing about. Captain Brooks stood on the bridge, studying the data they had received from Station Kepler 9. The information was limited, but what they had was concerning. The Vrax Collective controlled 40 star systems and had a reputation for brutality. Their warriors were heavily armored, standing nearly 8 feet tall, and they had never lost a ground engagement. 2 hours until we arrive, Lieutenant Miller announced from the navigation console. Good. Have all teams ready for immediate deployment, Brooks ordered. I want Marines in full combat gear, medical teams on standby, and weapons hot the moment we drop from faster than light. Sir, the station reports they're down to 30% shield capacity. Communications Officer Hayes reported. They've lost 2 sections to Vrax boarding parties. Casualties are heavy. Brooks clenched his jaw. Tell them to hold on. We're coming. On Station Kepler 9, the situation had gone from bad to worse. Trell fired his small plasma pistol down a corridor as Vrax warriors advanced, their armor shrugging off the weak shots. Beside him, Mara tried to seal a blast door, but the controls were damaged. Fall back to Section 7. Trell shouted to his remaining defenders. Out of 300 station personnel, barely 100 survived, and most of those were scientists with no combat training. A Vrax warrior broke through, its massive form filling the corridor. It raised a weapon that looked like it could punch through a hull, aiming at Trell. The shot never came. Mara threw herself in front of her commander, taking the blast meant for him. She crumpled to the deck, her silver skin scorched black. No, Trell grabbed her, dragging her back as other defenders laid down covering fire. Stay with me, Mara. She looked up at him with fading eyes. The humans. Are they really coming? Yes, Trell promised, though he had no idea if one small ship could make any difference. Just hold on. In the medical bay, now overflowing with wounded, Dr. Venn worked frantically to save lives. The elderly physician had lived through 2 wars, but nothing like this. The Vrax didn't just kill, they seemed to enjoy it. Doctor, we have multiple critical patients and no more supplies, his assistant said desperately. Venn looked at the dying people around him and felt helpless. Do what you can. Save who you can save. A massive explosion rocked the station. The Vrax had breached the main power core section. Lights flickered throughout Kepler 9. On the bridge, Trell received the worst possible news. Commander, the Vrax flagship is demanding our surrender, his communications officer reported. They say if we don't surrender in 1 hour, they'll destroy the entire station. Trell looked at his remaining crew. Exhausted, wounded, terrified. He couldn't ask them to die for nothing. How long until the human ship arrives? He asked quietly. 43 minutes, sir. So close, but not close enough. Prepare a surrender message, Trell said, each word heavy as lead. We have no choice. Then something unexpected happened. The communications console lit up with an incoming transmission, not from the Vrax, but from the approaching human vessel. Station Kepler 9. This is Captain Brooks of the UNS Valor. We're 30 minutes out. Do not surrender. Repeat, do not surrender. Hold your position. We're coming in hot. Trell felt a spark of hope, quickly crushed by reality. Human vessel, we appreciate your response, but you're 1 ship against a Vrax battle group. 3 warships, each outmassing you significantly. Your arrival won't change the outcome. You should save yourselves. There was a pause. Then Brooks's voice came back and Trell could hear something in it. Something hard and unyielding. Commander Trell, you asked for Deathworlders. You're about to see what that means. Just keep your people away from the docking bays and external sections. This is going to get messy. The line went silent. Trell looked at his crew, seeing his own confusion reflected in their faces. What could 1 small ship do against the Vrax war machine? In the Vrax flagship, War Leader Grath received reports of the approaching human vessel with amusement. 1 ship? They send 1 tiny ship? He laughed, a grinding sound like rocks crushing together. Destroy it when it arrives. Make it quick. I want to focus on the station. His weapons officer nodded, already targeting systems locked on the approaching vessel's projected position. Neither Grath nor Trell understood what was coming, but they would learn soon. Enough. The UNS Valor dropped out of faster-than-light travel exactly where Captain Brooks intended, right in the middle of the Vrax battle. Formation, the sudden appearance of a ship materializing between their vessels caused momentary confusion among the Vrax commanders. They were used to enemies approaching cautiously, requesting parley or attempting to flee. No one jumped directly into a superior force. "All weapons fire at will," Brooks commanded calmly. The Valor's railguns opened up, sending solid metal slugs at a significant fraction of light speed directly into the nearest Vrax warship. The aliens had energy shields designed to deflect plasma and laser weapons, standard galactic technology. They were not prepared for simple kinetic projectiles moving at such extreme velocities. The first Vrax ship's shields flickered and failed as tungsten rounds punched through, tearing into the hull. Atmosphere vented into space as the warship began to list. "What are they using?" War Leader Grath roared on his flagship. "Those aren't energy weapons. Solid projectiles, War Leader," his tactical officer reported, confusion evident in his voice. "Moving at .2 light speed. Our shields aren't stopping them. Then return fire. Destroy that ship." The Vrax warships opened up with their plasma cannons, brilliant green bolts crossing space toward the Valor. But Brooks had already ordered evasive maneuvers. The human ship moved with startling agility, spinning and rolling in ways that seemed impossible for a vessel its size. Most galactic ships moved in predictable, energy-efficient patterns. The Valor moved like it was dancing. "They're evading our targeting locks," the Vrax tactical officer reported, now sounding worried. "Their maneuvering is erratic. The computer can't predict their course." Grath watched in growing anger as the small human ship continued to dodge his weapons while landing hit after hit on his vessels. How are they moving like that? Their crew should be crushed by those acceleration forces. What Grath didn't understand was that humans had evolved on a planet with crushing gravity, in an environment that demanded fast reflexes and the ability to withstand extreme physical stress. The maneuvers that would kill most galactic species were uncomfortable for the Valor's crew, but survivable. "Sir, I'm reading life signs on the station," Hayes reported from the communications console. "They're still fighting." "Good, keep the Vrax busy. I want their attention on us, not that station," Brooks said, gripping his command chair as the ship pulled a tight turn that would have liquefied a Vrax crew. "Launch missiles. Full spread." 20 missiles streaked from the Valor toward the Vrax flagship. Grath's weapons officer quickly locked onto them, destroying most with point defense systems. But 3 got through, slamming into the flagship's engine section. The explosions were massive, far larger than they should have been. "What kind of warheads are those?" Grath demanded as his ship shuddered. "Analysis shows high-yield nuclear fusion devices," came the shocked reply. "War Leader, those are planet cracker weapons. They're using them in ship-to-ship combat." Grath felt something he rarely experienced: fear. What kind of species carried world-ending weapons as standard ship armaments? On Station Kepler 9, Trell and his crew watched the battle in amazement. The small human ship was fighting 3 Vrax warships and winning. It moved with impossible speed, struck with terrifying power, and seemed utterly fearless. "They're insane," one of his officers whispered. "Completely insane." "No," Dr. Venn said quietly, having come to the bridge to see what was happening. "They're from a death world. This is probably normal combat for them." The Vrax ships were trying to regroup, pulling back to form a defensive formation, but the Valor gave them no time. It pressed the attack, railguns firing continuously. "Station Kepler 9, this is Captain Brooks," the human's voice came through clearly. "We're keeping them occupied. Seal your docking bays and brace for heavy combat. We're sending boarding teams to clear the Vrax from your station." "Boarding teams," Trell repeated. "Captain, there are over 100 Vrax warriors on this station. They're heavily armed and armored. How many soldiers can you spare?" "We're sending 50 Marines, Commander." "They'll be enough. 50 against 100. The number seemed impossible. But then Trell remembered. These were humans. Deathworlders. Maybe the numbers didn't matter the same way. "Understood, Captain. We'll stay clear of the combat zones." Minutes later, 3 human dropships detached from the Valor, racing toward Station Kepler 9, while the main ship continued to hammer the Vrax fleet. Inside the lead dropship, Sergeant Torres checked her rifle and looked at her Marines. "Remember your briefing," she said. "These Vrax are bigger and stronger than us, but they're slow and they've never fought humans before. Use that, fast and aggressive. Clear every section. No mercy for anyone threatening civilians." The Marines nodded. Weapons ready. They were about to teach the Vrax what Deathworlders really meant. The human dropships landed hard on Station Kepler 9's docking bay, their armored hulls scraping against the deck plating. Before the Vrax defenders could react, the hatches blew open and the Marines poured out. Sergeant Torres was first through, her rifle already firing. The Vrax warriors in the bay returned fire with their heavy plasma weapons. But the humans moved like nothing the aliens had ever seen. They didn't advance in formation or take cover in predictable positions. They spread out, moved fast, and used every piece of equipment and debris as concealment. A Vrax warrior, towering at 8 feet tall and covered in thick combat armor, charged at Private Chen. The alien expected the small human to retreat or be crushed. Instead, Chen dropped and slid under the warrior's legs, spinning and putting 3 rounds into the unarmored joint behind its knee. The Vrax collapsed and Chen finished it with a shot to the neck seal. Section A clear. Torres called out. Team 2 moved to the residential area. Team 3, head for the power core. Move fast! The Marines split up, each team moving with practiced coordination. They communicated constantly, covered each other's positions, and adapted to every situation within seconds. In the station's main corridor, a group of 20 Vrax warriors had fortified a position, using their heavy weapons to control the entire section. They had already killed a dozen station defenders who tried to pass through. Lieutenant Park's team approached from 2 directions, using the station's service tunnels that were too small for the massive Vrax to enter. Grenades on my mark, Park whispered into his comm. 3, 2, 1, mark! 4 grenades arced through the air, landing among the Vrax position. The aliens had shields against energy weapons, but the fragmentation grenades were old-fashioned kinetic death. The explosion shredded the Vrax fortification. The surviving warriors tried to regroup, but the Marines were already on them, firing from multiple angles. The Vrax were strong and well-armored, but they were trained to fight in straightforward, honorable combat. The humans fought to win, using every advantage and showing no hesitation. Within 8 minutes, the corridor was clear. On the Vrax flagship, War Leader Grath received increasingly desperate reports from his boarding teams. War Leader, our forces on the station are being eliminated. The humans fight like demons. They're everywhere at once. How many human soldiers are on that station? Grath demanded. Scans show approximately 50, War Leader. 50? We have over 100 warriors there. Kill them! We're trying, War Leader, but they move too fast. They use tactics we've never encountered. They're picking us apart section by section. Grath slammed his fist on his command console. This was impossible. The Vrax were the terror of this entire region of space. They had conquered dozens of worlds. No species had ever defeated them in ground combat. Outside, the UNS Valor continued its relentless assault. Another Vrax warship was now venting atmosphere, its weapons offline. The third ship tried to retreat, but Brooks anticipated the move. Cut them off. I want them boxed in, he ordered. The Valor accelerated with brutal force, positioning itself between the fleeing Vrax ship and open space. Railguns fired again, tearing into the vessel's engines. On Station Kepler 9, Dr. Venn watched through a security camera as human Marines stormed the medical bay, where Vrax warriors had been holding wounded station personnel hostage. The humans didn't hesitate or negotiate. They breached the room from 3 entry points simultaneously, their movements so fast and coordinated that the Vrax barely had time to react. In seconds, it was over. The hostages were safe, and the Vrax were neutralized. Sergeant Torres reached the station's command center where Commander Trell and his remaining crew had barricaded themselves. She knocked on the sealed door. Commander Trell, this is Sergeant Torres, Earth Marines. Your station is secure. You can open up. The door slid open cautiously. Trell stared at the human standing before him. She was small compared to him, barely 5.5 feet tall. Her armor was scorched and dented. Blood stained her uniform, though she showed no sign of injury. Behind her, the corridor was littered with fallen Vrax warriors. How? Trell couldn't finish the question. Torres smiled grimly. You called for Deathworlders, Commander. On Earth, we've been fighting and surviving for millions of years. These Vrax? She gestured at the bodies. They're amateurs. My people owe you our lives, Trell said quietly. Just doing our job, sir. Now let's get your wounded sorted out and secure this station properly. Captain Brooks is still dealing with those ships outside. As if on cue, a massive explosion lit up space visible through the command center's viewports. One of the Vrax warships had just suffered a catastrophic failure. The Vrax had called for war. They got humans instead. War Leader Grath watched his fleet crumble around him. 2 of his warships were dead in space, venting atmosphere and fuel. His own flagship was heavily damaged, systems failing across multiple decks. And the station he had been ordered to capture was now firmly in human hands. The small human vessel continued to circle like a predator, its weapons never ceasing. Every shot landed with precision. Every maneuver put his ships at a disadvantage. War Leader, we must retreat, his second-in-command urged. We've lost this battle. Grath's pride screamed against the suggestion. The Vrax Collective had never retreated. Never. But his tactical training overrode his ego. These humans were unlike anything they had encountered. Fighting them further would mean complete annihilation. Signal the fleet, Grath said bitterly. Withdraw to the outer system. Prepare for emergency jump. On the Valor's bridge, Lieutenant Miller noticed the change immediately. Sir, the Vrax ships are pulling back. Their engines are powering up for faster than light. Captain Brooks considered pursuing them, then decided against it. Let them go. Our priority is the station and its people. Bring us alongside Kepler 9. I want damage reports and casualty figures. Aye, sir. As the Vrax fleet limped away into the darkness of space, Brooks allowed himself a moment of relief. They had done it. 1 ship and 50 Marines against a Vrax battle group, and they had won. Inside Station Kepler 9, Sergeant Torres and her Marines worked alongside the station's personnel to secure the facility and treat the wounded. Dr. Venn found himself working next to human medics who moved with calm efficiency, despite the carnage around them. Your people are remarkable, Venn said to one of the medics, a young woman named Reed. I've been a doctor for 40 years, and I've never seen anyone work so calmly in such conditions. Reed glanced up from the patient she was treating, a station engineer with severe burns. We train for this, sir. On Earth, disaster and violence are just part of life. We learn to handle it or we don't survive. The casual way she said it made Venn pause. These humans spoke of death and danger the way his people spoke of weather patterns. It was simply their reality. Commander Trell walked through his damaged station, taking stock of the losses. 73 of his people were dead, another 40 wounded. Entire sections were destroyed. But they were alive, and the station could be repaired. He found Sergeant Torres in the docking bay, overseeing the removal of Vrax bodies. Sergeant, I need to thank you and your people properly. Trell began. Torres held up a hand. Thank Captain Brooks, Commander. We just followed orders. Still, what you did here today, my people will not forget it. Torres nodded, then her expression turned serious. Commander, I need to ask you something. Why did you call specifically for Deathworld species? That's a pretty specific request. Trell looked confused. We didn't. We sent a standard military distress call asking for any available fleet support. Now it was Torres's turn to look puzzled. That's not what we received. The message specifically requested Stage 4 or higher Deathworld survivors. They looked at each other as understanding dawned. Somewhere in the transmission, the message had been garbled or mistranslated. The call that was meant for any military force had instead gone out asking for the toughest species in the galaxy. A fortunate mistake, Trell said quietly. For you, maybe, Torres replied with a slight smile. We just made a lot of enemies in the Vrax Collective. What will your people do now? Torres shrugged. That's above my pay grade, Commander. But if I know Earth Command, they'll want to make sure this doesn't happen again. Nobody attacks innocent stations on our watch. Several hours later, the UNS Valor prepared to depart. The station was stable, and a Council relief fleet was finally arriving. Captain Brooks stood on his bridge, reviewing the after-action reports. Casualty report, Lieutenant? He asked. 3 Marines wounded, none seriously. No fatalities on our side, sir, Miller reported. Brooks nodded, satisfied. Good. Set course for Earth. We need to report this incident to command. As the Valor pulled away from Station Kepler 9, Trell watched from his repaired command center. The small human ship had saved them all. One vessel had done what an entire Council fleet might have struggled to accomplish. Sir, incoming message from the Galactic Council, his communications officer reported. They're asking for a full report on the incident and the human involvement. Trell smiled for the first time in days. Tell them to prepare for a very interesting briefing. The galaxy just learned what happens when you call for Deathworlders. And what's that, Commander? You get exactly what you ask for. Far across the galaxy in the Vrax Collective's command center, emergency meetings were being held. War Leader Grath's report had caused panic among the leadership. A new species had entered galactic affairs, one that fought with terrifying efficiency and seemed to have no fear. The Vraks had dominated through strength and intimidation for generations. Now they faced something stronger. Humanity had arrived on the galactic stage and nothing would ever be the same. The end.